but they're like us. They're not like us. Everybody's like us. But I mean, the standards of the way people live is very similar to us. Water comes out of the tap when you want it. It's always there, and it's always been there for people. Here it doesn't. No matter how rich or how much power you have, it doesn't come out of the tap all the time. More often than not, but not all the time. So again, Dhaka. This is the mega city I lived in for a little while. Humongous city. 20 million people or so living in the city, on fault lines, in buildings that have no code, with no sewage. These are where the rich people live in these buildings. The poor people live everywhere else. Live on the streets, sleep on the sidewalks. And Bangladesh is full of people. So many people. And this is again this would be an upper class area where you can go for lovers' walks in the evenings. With a guy who's mowing the lawn with his goats, who's probably from the village, who came out to work in the city like most people do. And you can see the difference too. He's wearing traditional clothing. The guy with the goats, he is on a lungi, which is sort of long piece like a sarong type thing. And the other people who are probably the upper middle class are wearing Western clothes and holding hands and things. Things don't happen traditionally in a Muslim country. So Dhaka's really dirty. There's people everywhere and it's dirty. This is on the waterfront. This is on the Borganga River. The dirtiest river I've ever seen. It's not water anymore. I mean, we talk about the places in the U.S. in the 50s that lit on fire. And like Harbor River in Cleveland, lit on fire, burned. This would probably lit on fire, but then it would burn like tires. I mean, that's to put it in a little different perspective. When you test this water, it doesn't show up as water. The chemistry is not aquatic. For someone who likes water, this was unbelievably traumatizing to go down to this and to see people bathing in this and people brushing their teeth in this, because dental hygiene is a big thing, even if you're really poor. So you use whatever you can get. You use the river water floating by. And I met guys on the boats who, I didn't know a lot of Bangla here, the language they speak, but I knew there was some bad water. And there was guys in these boats, so I pointed to where they did this like bad water. And he'd point at sores on his body from the water and all kinds of terrible things. And there is a push right now to fix this. The government's trying, they're doing a lot of work, but the industry there is non-compliant. The people are non-compliant because they don't have another option. There's nowhere else to get water. There's nowhere else to dump sewage. There's nowhere else to dump toxic chemicals from factories yet. The bottom of this is actually, I think it's carpeted like 10 feet deep with this plastic waste trash and industrial waste. And it's a big river. It's the Borganga. The Ganga is like the Ganges, one of the world's rivers where culture develops, like the Nile, like the Amazon. This is the Borganga, which means old Ganga. So at one time, this was where the Ganga went through, where the Ganges went through Bangladesh, which is why Dhaka is here. Now it's a cesspool, an open cesspool.
What's the name of this river?
The Borganga. Buriganga. And downtown, I mean, just tons of activity, boats, all the time. This is a country of water. The whole country is a delta. It's a river delta. So it's just these hundreds of slow-moving waterways moving through the countryside. Again, similar to what you see when you fly over South Jersey, along the Delaware River and the Delaware Bay. We had those long, flat salt marshes with things winding in. This is freshwater, though, in this country, because it's the outflow of two of Europe's biggest rivers, the Ganga and the Sangpo out of China. So again, you can see that.
You were there after that major flood there that just wiped out the whole country?
This summer, you mean? Or the Pakistan?
Bangladesh. They were underwater.
Yeah, but Bangladesh is always underwater. Bangladesh is always underwater, every year. It's springtime, it goes underwater. There hasn't been a really bad flood in a few years, but when they're bad, yeah, Pakistan this summer. Yeah, I mean, there was one, so I was there in winter of last year, and that previous spring, there had been a huge cyclone that flooded the southern part of the country. I'm going to talk about that. I went there. Yeah, I'll show you some shots of that place. I lived there when I was in the city, being covered, like surrounded with smog and things, I would go to the coast. One place I would go to surfing, the other place I would go to do more research. But you can see going down the Borganga, this is industrial on the banks. It's just coal burning, brick factories and coal ring factories. That just completely, this is a big river, it's a big boat in the middle. It's a big, big ship. So it's a huge river, and it's full of industry, and the sky is black. And it's that way most of the time in Dhaka. Sundays when that picture of the lovers strolling in the park. That's a nice thing. They're not that common. But I still love it. I mean, it was a crazy place. I lived with a friend of George and the Wilbies, who they had known from years ago, who had helped to work in this area of the world to help get back.
Some people might have met her,
Yeah, Sultana alum, if anyone's met her. She was here several times in the last 2 years, and used to live in Philly, I guess. But they're people of the water. These are people living on the Boiganga, in houseboats. This is pretty common. A lot of the country lives on the water because it floods so frequently. It's just the way historically you lived. There's whole cultures of river gypsies, people that live and fish and travel around the country. And though it's harder to do that when the river has no food in it, people still stick to that. And they come to the city and they think they can make money, and they do to some extent in the city and feed themselves. But you can see all along the riverbank you'll have these kind of floating houses. And this is just the blackness of the water, I think. I mean, it's black. Completely black. You can see, barely through the surface. Blackish gray, maybe.
Does it have an odor to it?
Oh, yeah, I mean, Bangladesh has an odor to it. It's just sewage. It smells like sewage all the time. Yeah, in any culture that there's, a lot of places have open sewage, especially with high population. If you're in India, it's this way. In the cities especially, you just have, open sewer drains, and that smell doesn't go away. You just get used to it. When I moved out of Bangladesh to the new country, one day I was walking through a part of town that had an open sewage drain there, and I was like, oh my God, it smells like Bangladesh. I hadn't noticed that I had lived amongst this odor for so long. But yeah, it's people live their entire lives thinking that's how air smells. It's crazy. Again, people. This is everywhere you go. Maybe a big, tall, white guy, sweaty, always soaking wet and sweat. You're the biggest thing to come to town for a long. I mean, a lot of boats I was in. I was the first white person half people in town had seen, and it's kind of interesting because you get treated really, really well, and people want to take care of you, and you get really stressed out because everyone wants to take care of you, and everyone wants to tell you what to do. Everyone wants to marry you, or have you marry their daughter, or have you marry their son if you don't like your daughter. It doesn't matter. The idea is that you're this attraction, and it got tiring after a while. So that's why I go to the one coast that I went to go surfing, because that was a little small community. There was a refugee camp there, and they were much chiller. They were surfing people, so they were more relaxed. They were coast people. But here, I was in a village where they had just had, where Bill had mentioned this flooding, this cyclone Isla. It came through out of the Bay of Bengal. It wiped out a bunch of communities in Burma, and then came into Bangladesh and did a fair amount of damage on the coast to these low-lying communities. And this was actually a work crew. You can see in the background, there's all this, they've been digging the mud to dig out mud bricks to reinforce that dike that was blowing out. This is 9 months later. The water's very low now, but they still haven't finished repairing the place. Also, all men, always all men. It's a very segregated culture, and women would not be out staring in crowds. And just look at the people everywhere. This is just getting around downtown or anywhere in the country where you had lots of people, taking boats full of people. I was full man. I was watching. We were near Burma, and I just kept looking. I said, if this thing flips over, I gotta swim to Burma. I just got my passport in my pocket because I wouldn't make it to Bangladesh. And this boat didn't seem seaworthy. I was wearing these life vests. These are like U.S. Navy 1940. They say on them. And there was 3 on the boat. And I was like, I want to wear one of those. You guys are like, oh yeah, of course. Yeah, the boat's very safe. I'm like, hey, I'll shake it. I'll show you. Which is a common thing. Everyone tells you, oh, things are very safe. I'm like, are you crazy? And then it'll come up in a second. There you go. Just the intensity of the people. I think I said it was stressful to be stared all the time, but it was also just incredible because you saw every part of everyone, and there's no privacy in this country either. So demonstrating at me, I realized became the norm. It's part of being a person. You get looked at. There's no TV, so you gotta look at something. So that same region, Bill, where I was saying, so this is what would be happening in these coastal communities. A lot of standing around, all kinds of different fish coming out, being sold, just boats doing everything, moving trucks, motorcycles across these kind of boats. Houses built right on the water, out of sticks, out of reeds, out of mud, in an area that gets hit with cyclones where the water goes over 30 feet over those houses. 30 feet, so that's pretty high. And you can see this boat people. I mean, water is such a part of their life. And yet in that same area, you have these decrepit old mansions from the English rule. So you have this culture that was imposed for a long time there that is decaying.